Our instructor for this video is Kevin Burke. This training is not intended to be a substitute for the advice of your broker, nor that of your attorney. Let's get started.
Thank you for being here today. Okay, I am glad you're all here. Are we all ready for this? Are we ready to get out of this? I mean, this is crazy, okay? So let's go ahead. We are at the Greater San Diego Association of Realtors. My name is Kevin Burke. There's my telephone number. There's my email address. Thank you for having me today. Thank you for being here. Here's some credentials. I'm often asked to put this up just so that you know why I might be actually qualified to talk about some of these subjects. We're going to talk about updated guidance on open houses because the rule just changed again. I always like talking about a subject where I know that, I want to take a picture. My PowerPoint actually has the date on it. I want to take a picture because this is the situation as it is at this moment. This is very fluid, very subject to change. Based on the latest release of restrictions and things, we may end up going right back into it again. As you're going to see in a few minutes, we are oranged here at this moment, but we will, that can always be subject to change. So part two, I got that from, I don't even know where I got that from, but anyway, part two, here we go. So we have California's state position, and I'm putting that up here on the website. And again, all my material, everything I've done for this, I am more than happy to share with you. I shouldn't probably say that. I put a lot of burden on education. Our SDR's education department, out of control. They are so good, always looking for ways to enhance our membership and our member dollars. So here is the website for the state position. Be aware also that CAR has a pretty good website as well. I think you should consider looking at that from time to time. Let me pull that up here really quick. I'm going to have to move my little bar. So here's the state, here's your California Association of Realtors. I think I need to move this down the bottom. There we go. California Association of Realtors, they've got a really good link right here to get you to this information. And I like all of these links in here. So just letting you know that those resources are available to you. But we are going to talk about where we are and not necessarily their interpretation of that. So, but thank you. A lot of what they did contributes to what we're going to talk about today. So the California Department of Public Health has a position on these things, and I'm going to flip over to that really quick just to show you. This is the CDPH's checklist for real estate transactions from last year. This has changed a bit, but the links will take you to more current information. Again, there's a lot here. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. So I just wanted you to be aware that it is there. And then let's discuss the state's position first, of course. So we're going to talk about attendance and attendance at events. And a shout out to Steve Rioli, who I love Steve, everybody knows that. He is our president of our SDMLS. And I got him on the horn. I realized 5 minutes before I got on camera here that I had forgotten to ask him yesterday in a meeting that we were in, whether or not we had lifted the sanctions on doing open houses and caravans from our MLS. And I'm proud to say Steve took my call, which is, he's a busy guy. I'm really pleased. And he took my call and he said, the big announcement coming out today, even this event is on the homepage of your SDMLS. So watch, you should be reading that. In the SDMLS, you should be reading that homepage in there. They've always got good stuff. And they're going to have some big announcements about our ability to do open houses again. I don't want to lose some of you just because that's all you came here for. But, but there's a lot of good stuff. So anyway, bottom line is, we are going to open up the ability to do open houses in your MLS. We're going to open up the ability to do caravans again, tours, we call them, things like that. But remember that all the stuff we're looking at today, again, it's a snapshot in time, and that situation is subject to change. So attendance at all gatherings shall be limited according to the county risk level. So you're going to see the state says, here's what we're going to establish, and then the county has a more restrictive level. And then, of course, the cities, each of your localities will have more restrictive levels than that. And then you might have personally an even more restrictive level. So we're going to start off with attendance. For the most updated information, we do have a blueprint for a safer economy. And now I got to, where did I put it? Here it is. So there is a website, again, the covid19.ca.gov/safer-economy. And that will take you to this blueprint for a safer economy. County, for those of you that are interested, and this is updated as of today at 11:30, so half an hour ago. So all you got to do is go in here, put in your county, and in fact, let's go ahead and do that, just for laughs and giggles. County, get the status, and now you can see right here from the website that we are in the moderate level. Now, for your information, if you go to this website here and you click on understand the data, it gives you all kinds of stuff you're not going to understand. But then you can also see your county's website, which has its own information, which is a little bit deeper, obviously, than what you're getting when you look at the other stuff. So here's all your stuff. This was updated yesterday. Get alerts from your county, all that. Okay, everybody good? What I did is I went down in here and I went to San Diego County, obviously, because that is my county. San Diego is my home. And when I clicked on that, I came up with my COVID-19 information. Folks, there's some really good stuff here. I don't know how deep you want to go, right? I mean, put a pin in the map, how deep you want to go. I know some of you all you want to know about is what can I do today? So let's get back into that. Just letting you know, there is a blueprint for a safer economy. Please note, local health departments can be more restrictive, and they are going to be more restrictive. We've seen how that's kind of not worked so great in some situations in San Diego. So let's discuss San Diego's position. San Diego is in the orange, or the moderate tier 3. That means that translates to outdoor gatherings, a maximum of 50 people. And I know you're saying, well, gee, outdoors, we'll have all of our stuff outdoors. Well, okay, well, let's think about that. Open houses usually require you be inside. Indoor gatherings are still going to be strongly discouraged at this point while we're in orange. Okay, maximum 25% capacity where capacity limits exist. So if 100 people are allowed to be in the room, then that means 25 people, whichever is fewer. Okay, so you want to keep that, and that's going to be a real challenge for us, right? Because when we're doing our open houses, they're coming, they're going, and it's going to be hard for us to maintain that. And so we're all going to have to use our heads, put our thinking caps on, and try to get this to work properly. Okay, we don't want people getting sick with this stuff. It's pretty nasty stuff. Okay, location, gatherings that occur outdoors are obviously significantly safer than indoor gatherings. Okay, that doesn't mean 100%. All right, indoor gatherings strongly discouraged, but may occur according to the limits defined above. If gathering indoors, we want to make sure we increase the fresh air circulation, open the windows, the doors as much as possible, especially in the rooms where people are gathering, things like that. Okay. All right. If multiple gatherings are occurring, mixing between groups is not allowed. So, and just because we're all the realtor body doesn't mean we're all, we're related in a way, right? But we're not necessarily going to want to get too big a crowd. So remember, a bunch of people come down sick, and it gets pinpointed back to your open house. You're going to take the heat for that. Okay. Multiple unique gatherings. So, here's my family over here. Here's your family over here. Here's another family over here. Cannot be jointly organized or coordinated, occur in the same public park or other outdoor space at the same time. I started to have mental problems with this because I'm thinking like, wow, right of assembly, things like that. So I won't get into the political side of stuff, but understand that's where we are right now, and it's for the common good, as we say. This would constitute a gathering exceeding the permitted limits. Food and drink. I'm moving along pretty quickly here. Are there any questions so far? I've still got a lot to cover. I've got a bunch of forms and stuff. And Josie, how do you determine the count of people? Is it by square footage? It's going to depend. I think we need to practice safety. If you've got, I know, because I do what you do. I get an open house. I have 500 people in this place at any one time. And so you're just going to have to limit the crowd. We're not done with that yet. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sign-ins and things like that. So we've got some really cool forms available to us. A mask must be lowered or removed. Eating or drinking increases the risk of COVID. I don't think that's a true statement. I don't know about eating or drinking increasing the risk of COVID. I think what's going on, of course, is and I'm pretty well attached to the medical community, is the sputum, right? Like right now, I'm in a room and I'm, just blasting everywhere. Okay. So remember, when you're talking to people, have you ever looked, you're talking to somebody and the sun's behind them and you see all this stuff coming out? That's the kind of thing that we're worried about, right? Those are the kinds of things. The eating or the drinking itself doesn't cause an increase in the risk of COVID, but the fact that you've exposed yourself or someone else to the saliva is going to be the big deal. So especially when gatherings include people people that are not fully vaccinated. Now, I looked at an interesting statistic just a couple of hours ago, where we've got 74% of our community of our country have actually been vaccinated, which I think is fascinating, right? And so, how do you know that the person that you're looking at has been or has not been vaccinated? And we're going to see that the mask is not necessarily going to be the great delineator on that. Okay, so especially when you are in an area, what are you going to ask everybody for their card? I think some states have said we're not going to allow that to happen. Okay, question. Are we going to be able to leverage the vaccine cards? Oh, Daniel, I'm not sure if I understand your question. How am I going to leverage that? You mean show your card to prove that you've been vaccinated? Now, I probably should, I'm not a medical doctor. I am a doctor, but it's not a medical doctor. But, I'm going to tell you something that the fact that somebody gets vaccinated, I'm pretty sure that doesn't mean that you can't catch it. I think that means that your symptoms may not be as bad or as severe as they would have been if you had not been vaccinated. I think that's kind of where that's going, right? So if you're vaccinated, doesn't mean you're cured, doesn't mean it goes away, right? They even won't even vaccinate you if you've got it, right? You got to wait until afterwards, okay? But that's going to be some of the key things that we need to be thinking about. And the questions are rolling in. Looks like I asked for something, my own name. Jane, I'm going to bet that's you. What change, if any, are needed for MLS entry to add a caravan tour? No change necessarily. You are so funny. No change necessarily. That feature is going to be opened up according to Steve a few minutes ago. Erica, thank you. HIPAA laws, sure. So, I don't know. Are you entitled to see my card? I mean, there's some safety issues and some privacy issues. So anyway, we don't know that everybody's been vaccinated. I think 74%, that's a pretty good thing, right? But, the fact that, you can still get COVID, even though you've been vaccinated, that means maybe that you can still be a spreader, right? So that kind of thing. So I'm not so sure how safe all this is. Food and drink should be limited to outdoors if at all possible. So I know a lot of the houses that I go on caravan and on tour and open houses and things like that, there's usually people are sitting outside. We're in San Diego, for crying out loud. It's a beautiful place, right? So a lot of our stuff, we tend to migrate to the outdoors. But if you're doing it indoors, we're going to discourage that. We don't think that that's a really great idea. And again, for the reasons that we have already stated. So face coverings are removed for eating or drinking. Individuals must stay at least 6 feet away from everyone outside their own household. Okay, so if you're within your own little group, you can be within 3 feet. I don't think we're going to be able to stop you from doing that. But if you are outside in a group with other people, then you're going to be looking at different numbers there. Burden of proof when it comes to infection. I agree, Al. How do they prove it was your open house? They caught it. Listen, it's an interesting case. Doubtful litigants will prevail. I scored in top. Okay, yeah. Wow, that's pretty impressive. All right, so I don't know what the answer to that is. I think you're going to be hard pressed. And I should note for a second, that's a great comment that you made. I should note for a second that the DRE is looking in our files, folks, to see that we have actually got those PED forms in the file, right? Because they want us to be following the governor's mandate, which says we have some sort of tracking mechanism in place. And so, to your question, which is a good one, Al. The question is, so where did I get it? And so kind of the theory is we'd like to be able to figure out where you got it. And so if somebody that visited the open house contracted it, then we have to start going back through the chain of events and find out all the other people that could have been exposed. That's kind of the theory, but DRE has latched onto that and probably, rightfully so. I mean, so I think the bottom line is that you need to make sure that you've got those forms available in there. In the immortal words of Veronica Kilpatrick, you may need to be able to defend that position. Okay, she said that on another subject, but I just always remember everything Veronica says. It's always good. And put their face covering back on as soon as they are done with the activity. So if you're indoors, I probably at the open house, I probably wouldn't go doing refreshments right away, if you know what I mean. So the face coverings are removed. We think that people, could still come down with something, but they got to put their face covering back on as soon as they're done with the activity. I know there's a lot of comments out there about whether or not the mask itself is creating part of the harm. Open house field on MLS. Oh, thank you, Jane. Cool. So Jane has posted in the question and answers that the open house field on the MLS for both Paragon and Connect MLS is available, and that's something we got from Steve about 5 minutes before we went on camera here today. I like saying on camera, like it's some kind of big deal. Food and beverages should be served by a person. Okay, no self-service is what I'm hearing. Okay, should be served by a person who washes or sanitizes their hands frequently and who must wear a face covering, obviously, while serving, while preparing, things like that. Okay, remind all persons to sanitize their hands before eating or drinking. Okay, so it's that contact with the hands. Certainly, all the stuff that Linda says, that I was so weird about for the many, almost 9 years now. Now all of a sudden everybody's doing it. It's like, wash your hands frequently, make sure that they're clean, don't touch your face, rubbing your eyes, rubbing your nose, things like that. Those are things that can transmit this. Okay, so, and after touching shared items, if shared items are unavoidable, so we want you not to have items, go pick it, like we used to put our hands into the thing to grab the forks and the knives and stuff, and we're going to kind of discourage that. Okay, all right. When persons are not able to consume food and drink outdoors, windows and doors should remain open as much as possible to provide good air circulation and ventilation. And I think that's just kind of a carryover from what we were doing before, right? When you're going to have your house, if you're going to make your house available for sale, the seller or the listing agent, seller's agent should be going through opening up all the doors and windows, because you want to minimize the possibility of contact by the individual coming into the house after them to actually touch those surfaces, because their job was to now clean the place after they had been in the property. That's been what our position has been all along in California. And of course, we know people aren't necessarily doing it. I know that I was involved in a conversation that an agent had said, yeah, I did clean the place after I left the place, and the seller came back and said, I've got you on camera, you didn't clean anything. Okay, so remember, folks, there are cameras in these houses, so be aware of that. Okay, so try to keep the air circulation going. That's going to be good for you and I. Don't attend gatherings if you feel sick. I think that fairly self-explanatory. All right, and I think that we need to take that to heart, and that actually is in consideration for others. So okay, another question here, Carla. I'm about to walk into. Yes, this is being recorded. Thank you, Carla. That's very kind of you. Carla, check back in with me later on, and education@sdar.com. Okay, so I know this is a big subject for all of us, and we want to make sure that we're good with it. Okay, and so the big hot news that Jane just posted is of course the fact that your tours and your open houses are again available within the MLS, and I think you should take advantage of that, folks. Like even open houses, I mean, we know to put our tour property in there and stuff like that, but your MLS actually advertises your open houses for you. So if when you go to put in an open house, let's say you're having one on Sunday, put your open house in SDMLS, put it in as an open house for that day. Michael Citron and we talked about that, 20 years ago, about the benefits of doing that, because that's just one more way to market your property. SDAR also has a website, a location on their website where you can advertise your open houses, and all that they're doing all the social media for you. Zeno, if serving food, I would think the server should wear hand covering and mask as well, especially if asking guests questions. Good point. I know I have relatives that, we go out, we have dinner, we go to have lunch. I have some who insist that it only be in an open market venue, right? Not going to go inside the restaurant, things like that. So this is a change of our lifestyle. We think we're coming back, but it's not all going to happen today. Okay, so don't attend gatherings if you feel sick. Be considerate of others. Individuals that are in a high risk group are discouraged from attending any gatherings. Okay, so what would that be? Infants, elderly, those people with respiratory issues, things like that. All you have to do is flash back to 6 months ago. The people that were coming down with this tended, the ones that were not surviving it were the ones that had respiratory issues, health issues, things like that. Okay. So Josie, will this be covering open house, open signs? Yes, in just 1 second, those with COVID. Okay, thank you. Yes, we're going to talk about signs. Okay, so practice physical distancing and hand hygiene at gatherings. That's pretty obvious. Wear a face covering to keep it COVID from spreading. By the way, spreading from you to others or from others to you. Keep it short. So keep your meetings with others short if you can. Some people think I should keep it short, but anyway, keep it short. Keep your meetings short and minimum amount of time. I thought this was very interesting. And again, we're talking about the state's position. Singing, chanting, shouting, cheering, and similar activities are strongly discouraged. I can't see you laughing, but some people are, I'm sure, laughing and going, well, what does that mean? Right? Well, you know what? Getting crazy and all that kind of stuff, maybe that's not going to be a good idea. So I think that pretty much summarizes the state's position on where we should be on everything. Let's talk about our open houses. And again, I had an hour to do this. I'm probably going to be done just a couple minutes early, but I do want to show you the new forms. I'm so excited. Everybody knows I'm the forms guy, right? So I got new forms for you coming out, and they're kind of cool, kind of streamlining some of the stuff we did before. Hi, Laura. When will syndication of the open house info from SDMLS out to public sites be done? That's happening currently. That happens today. Advertising open houses without qualifiers. Okay, so no restrictions anymore. All right, subject to the group gathering. Okay, so if you're going to have that open house that has like 200 people at it, then I would use your common sense, whatever that is, and limit the number of people that are going in and out of the house at a time. But we don't have to necessarily have signed, open house signs that say that you had to digital sign in or things like that. Now we are going to have some forms that we're going to suggest that you use at the open house. All right, we're going to talk about that here in just about 2 seconds. But advertising the open house without a qualifier is now allowed, and that includes in the MLS or in other places. Okay, so and again, as we said just a second ago, your MLS is a great resource. SDMLS is a great resource for getting the news about your property out there faster than almost anywhere else. We have people that list their properties in SDMLS because it's got better marketing than some of the other places have. So so be aware that includes your advertising on the open house. Now, don't confuse any of this with clear cooperation and coming soons and things like that. Okay, although I hear that some people might have been using this as an excuse to avoid those things. So no appointments are required for open house attendees. All right, no appointments are required. Multiple groups are now allowed on the property, again, subject to the restrictions that we talked about a minute ago. For both open houses and showings, you may now have more than one individual or connected group of persons on the property. That doesn't mean we're all with the Elks Lodge or that kind of thing. It means family. So remember that the previous rule said the family could come in, but only one buyer's agent, only the couple, whatever it was, could come in at a time. Now you can have more than one individual or more than one connected group of persons actually be on the property. Okay. All right. The total number of persons allowed also depends on the tier level. So if we go back, we remember it was 25% of capacity, which was, if the capacity was 100, then that would mean 25 people. So, and Josephina, your question, it was Josephina who asked a really good question about how do, Josie, how do we determine capacity? I know it's back here. I'm looking at Josie. Yeah. How do we determine the count of people? Is it by square footage? And, that's a really good question. I don't know what to tell you with that. I think that most of us know that if we've got, we know when we've got too many people in the open house, right? And it's not just because, the silverware is disappearing or anything like that. It just means that, I know when there's too many people. Shapar, the PED form, we're going to talk about that in about 3 minutes. Do we have to provide the listing agent or the person holding the house open with the PED? We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Okay, good question. All right. So the number of groups or individuals should allow for social distancing. So remember, I don't know of a house in San Diego County that I could have 500 people in there and still have my 6 feet of separation from these people. Okay, 6 feet for unrelated people, 3 feet for related people, that kind of thing. Okay, everybody's wearing a mask. The simplest way to figure it out: social distancing between households. Okay, so the households, obviously, you're not going to have the same requirements, if they're all within the same household, and adjust and limit the number of persons in the property at any given time to achieve social distancing. Okay, so that call. All right. Okay. I hate to tell you, use your discretion, because I think it's going to come down to worse than that. I think you're going to really need to keep the numbers down as best that you can. Okay. Sorry, I thought I had another question in there. Okay. All right. Face masks. All visitors must wear face masks indoors, even if vaccinated. I've had some people say, well, what was the point of getting vaccinated? Well, I don't know, make it a little bit, little less likely that you would suffer the symptoms of the actual, the full-on symptoms of COVID-19. Okay, but all visitors, everybody see this is critically important. All visitors to your open house must wear masks indoors. All right. We have situations where people would call us up and they would say, well, hey, so-and-so wasn't wearing a mask. Okay. So, I don't know. I don't think we're handling that in grievance, but I think you could turn them into OSHA. You could turn them into the county health department, things like that. I mean, it's kind of important that there may be still people out there transmitting this thing. Okay. So, and comply with the other guidance, such as hand sanitizing or washing. So my advice probably would be to have those available for people. So as I say here on this next slide, you need, and this is the advice that we're getting, is that you need to have those extra face masks available for those who don't have one. And if I could make a shameless plug for the San Diego Association of Realtors and the things that they do for their membership, we still have the open house kits, folks, hand sanitizers, masks, stuff like that. Listen, SDAR does so much for us. Email membership@sdar.com. Sign in. I want to show you to sign in. Let's talk about a couple of forms. You all know me. I love my forms, right? We did the blueprint. That was the blueprint. Here's the County of San Diego's order of the health officer that just took effect on May the 6th. Again, I will send all this to you, folks. This is really good stuff, okay? We're going to comply with the state's orders, things like that. The California Department of Public Health. Here it is. I'll send you the link. I'll send you all of this. I want you to have it. But let's talk about our open house and showing guidelines. Sign in, the moment you've all been waiting for. This is the form that we have, the final version of this form for your sign-ins at your open house. So CAR Legal actually created a form for you. I'm sure I'll be doing the forms updates. We've got a whole bunch of new forms coming out in June. And so you'll see that some of these things, we're going to talk about these in just a second. So I'm going to hit on them now, and then we can go through the slides really fast. Agree to follow the broker's prevention plan. Remember that, the BPPP. So we've modified that, toned that down quite a bit, which can be accessed at the address below. So all you have to do is give them the link to it. You don't necessarily have to give them the form. Agree to the posted rules of entry, Scott. So good question. The posted rules of entry, which I'm going to show you that in about 1 second. Okay, I'm going to show you that next. All right. In fact, let me show that to you now. So here's the posted rules for entry. All persons entering the property agree to these posted rules. And again, this is toned way down. It used to be 2 pages. Now it's just 1. Washing your hands, wearing, all this stuff, the same old stuff that I do every day. Okay. And then avoid touching surfaces or items in the property. All right. And we're going to be able to say that we told you. Okay. And for the safety of everybody you represent, that you're not sick, you haven't been around anybody that's been sick, you'll inform your broker if you get sick, things like that. And so, I go having some, oral surgery, and they say, have you been with anyone? Have you associated with anyone who is sick? And I say, yes. And they say, uh-oh. And then I go, yeah, it's my little sister. She's in Scottsdale, Arizona. And so it's like on the phone, right? But, they want to know, because they want to make sure that they are also protected. But back to my open house form, it says right in here, same stuff that you had on the PRE. That's how easy this is, okay? Practice social distancing between households as required by federal, state, and local laws. Make the following representations. Those are the 3 things we just talked about. Those are on your PED form, okay? And so here it is. Posted rules for entries and the BPP can be accessed at this location, all right? There's an S in front of that, so I'm wondering if that is secure site if you actually have to sign in. But these forms are all available for you. They have been available for you now for the last couple of days in your transaction management platform. So whether you're using Zip Forms or Glide, any of those kinds of things, those programs are already available. This form is already available to you. Okay. In fact, that's where I got this one, was out of that program. An easy way to find it, by the way, in Zip Forms is to go into Zip Forms, go over to the right-hand side, click on all forms, and then click on the category link, and then you'll see a link will pop up for COVID sales, COVID leases, that kind of thing. Hit COVID sales, and all those forms are going to be in there for you. And again, when they're in the library, we're going to update them as the updates occur. If you are using a template, then we will update your template. We will never touch a transaction that you have in progress. Okay, so just a little hint on how the transaction management platform works. So see this, you can have a whole great big, just like sign-in sheet you do already anyway, right? Okay, so phone number, time entered, all that stuff. And I want to point out to you, because I'm a big compliance guy, as you know, and you will notice that even though you're taking their phone number, there's nothing in here that says that this authorizes the broker to contact you if your name and number are on the federal do not call registry. So this is just, everybody be clear that this is not giving you, them signing this up and putting their information in here so that you can get a hold of them later in the event of an outbreak or an infection of some kind, or you can send them a copy of the document. What a great way to make contact with them, right? But it doesn't necessarily bypass the 18-month rule that says that you've had a business relationship with them in the last 18 months, year and a half, right? So notice there's no language in here about that. Okay, so your open house sign in, your normal open house sign in would have something that would probably say that. Check with your broker, whatever your broker is asking you to do. Back to my PRE real quick. Notice that there's no place to sign it, but essentially we've given them a picture version of what the rules are. So remember, posted rules for entry means this has to be posted at the entry to the property. Okay, so that everybody can see it. And I know I had a little thing with one of the attorneys at Car Legal, I won't tell you who, in a webinar that we were in together, and they said, as long as it's on the kitchen table. And I said, no, I think it needs to be on the front door. Okay, someplace where it's not going to disappear. I'd probably have it laminated, but I would definitely be doing this. The DRE is looking for it. Okay, questions, no more sign-in sheets that no one wants to sign. Yeah, we're just doing it because we're required to do it. Erica, that's a great question. Okay, we're required to do it, but remember, that also means that you aren't able to, you should not be contacting these people, for purposes of solicitation. So Allison, can we get a copy of this webinar? Send an email to education@sdar.com. So remember, we had membership at sdar.com, and again, your most important email address to have is education@sdar.com. I personally think that there should be a kevin@sdar.com, but I'm sure I'll get shot down on that. So Sarah, a separate form for each group of people, separate form for each individual. That is correct. If you're talking about the sign-in sheet. Betsy, I'm watching my clock. If a client refuses to wear a mask or sign in, I would turn them away. I don't know. Your question is, may we turn them away from the open house without legal repercussion? I can't answer the question, the legal question of things, but I would say you are tasked with observing the governor's mandate. The DRE has made it very clear that in our risk management meeting at SDAR especially, they have said, listen, we think that if you are not following the governor's mandate, that you are breaking the law. So yes, you can refuse admittance to people that will not comply with the governor's order. Okay, you want to be able to say that you did. Stewart, if a group of 4 people, 2 children, does everyone have to sign and print on the PSI? So the 2 children under the age of 18, probably not. The other 4, probably. Yeah, I probably wouldn't let them in unless they sign it. That would just be my position. And that's like a follow-up to Betsy's question, which was such a great question. Tom, what if they use a fake name? Are they required to show ID? Yeah, I'm with you, Tom. I get it, right? Okay, some people are just going to try to fake us out. That's on them, right? What happens if somebody comes down with COVID and now you can't get a hold of them because they gave you the telephone number to, the San Diego Zoo, right? I know, because I used to do that kind of stuff. Jane, look for a copy of the webinar on YouTube tomorrow morning. Jane. Okay, so Jane is going to publish this on YouTube. So you definitely need to go in and subscribe to the SDAR. I'm sounding like a plug for SDAR. Go into YouTube and and subscribe to SDAR's YouTube channel, and all this stuff, all my webinars, the RPA, we've been doing the new RPA coming out, the RLA, all that stuff. You're going to be able to find all that in there. The advantage to doing it here today, folks, is that you can ask questions and I can interact with you, rather than there you're just going to be able to observe. Scott, any notations regarding the other with large white lettering that is in the landscape format along with this one? I don't know what that is unless you're referring to an older one, Scott. Let me know. Jennifer, did you say separate sign-in sheet for each person, family, group? No, just keep filling out the sheet as you go. Okay, Susan, do buyers need a copy of this PSI? No, you're not going to give them a copy of that. That's a good question. PED, yes, I'd probably give them a copy of the PED. And so print a whole bunch of copies so that, you know, if they sign the PED, and again, we're going to talk about the PED in just a second, then if they sign the PED, then you always want to give people a copy of something that they have signed. DRE requires within 24 hours. In the old day, you had to give it to them at the time that they signed it. But today, it's just the DRE has softened that position a little bit and said within 24 hours. So all persons entering should sign in either digitally or in writing. They can always do it by email. The new form PSI, property sign-in, which I just showed you a second ago, can be used for the purpose. It should include certain agreements. So again, you don't have to use the PSI form, but I would check maybe your broker has a separate form. If I were a real estate agent, I would not be drafting my own form. I'm sorry, I am a real estate agent. I'm a really big real estate agent. So I'm not going to draft my own form. You know, I'm a non-practicing lawyer. You know, I'm still not going to draft my own form. I just hired an attorney to create a trust. You know, so you know what? There's certain things that you just got to understand. You're beyond, you know, that education required to get your license, kind of thing. Okay, a statement that by entering the property, the visitor is agreeing to follow the posted rules of entry. If you don't have it posted, then you're just dust anyway, right? You need to have that up there. It needs to be obvious to everybody. Some of us are going to have extra copies for everybody and hand it to them as they walk in the door. This is what we're going to expect of you, okay? That they have received a link to or a copy of the prevention plan. Remember, the DRE has taken the position, the governor has taken the position that we must have a prevention plan in place. So since we wanted to help out the brokerages who didn't want to have to necessarily create their own plan, even though they're required to have one, so CAR created that BPPP for that purpose, okay? So you need to take really special care and watch that form, because that's a good form. We've done some changes to it. Here it is. Let's show you that form real quick. So this is my best practices form, okay? So you remember it used to be 2 pages. Now it's just 1 page. We've summarized a lot of this stuff, and we had to summarize it because the rules changed, okay? Showing rules for listing and buyer's agents, cleaning and disinfecting the property and sanitation products, okay? Rules for visitors, okay? So if you are handing this out to people, which I would recommend at the door to the property, prove that you are taking this serious, that you are a professional in the line of work that you're in. And I would probably put a marker and mark around this and say, this is particularly important to you, okay? And then we have our rules for sellers and occupants, which we've had all along. And we've minimized some of that, the requirements on some of those forms as well. Let me see how many more. Oh, Lord help us. Okay, all right. What was I going to show you next? Not time for that one yet. Question. Thank you, Susan. That was a good question about the PED. The PED, yes. PSI, no, they don't get a copy of that. And they're not actually signing it. They're giving us their name. It's not actually a signature in place unless I missed something. Let's take a look. Here's my sign-in form, open house guidelines. Yeah, they're not actually signing it. Oh, I guess they are. You are right. They are signing it and printing it. I have a problem with that because I'm not going to send everybody a copy of all these other names and numbers and all of that. That's a really good question. I like that. Good question. Okay, I got to take that to legal. Good question, Susan. Tom, if a group signs a PED, they must sign it individually. Are they still required to sign the PSI? So the answer is I probably would do both. You have to, at a minimum, have the PED form. And according to the new mandate, you need to have the PSI as well. Yeah, I would. So we should probably post the rules at all of our houses. That is true, John. Whether they are open that day or not, you need to have that PRE form posted at the property. And frankly, now you have the ability to also post a one-page BPPP form, letting everybody know that you're a pro and that you've got, you're taking the governor's mandate seriously. And you were doing that last year. Good for you. Excellent. Anonymous, visitors need to sign PED and PSI, 2 forms to be able to enter. That would be my position, yes. Okay, back to where we were. That they've received a link, and that's what I just showed you a second ago. On the form itself, sorry, I keep jumping back and forth. Here is the link to the broker prevention plan, the BPPP. Okay, so we have to remember we have to give them a copy of it, but of course we're not giving them a copy of this. You might give them a blank copy, so carry an extra blank copy. Once they sign it, give them the blank copy. If you make that a standard practice in your business, then I would tell you you're probably going to be compliant. That's how I would handle it. So really good questions. Goodness gracious. Josie, are there any rules that specifically state the type of face covering? Oh yeah, I have seen people with just their chin covered with a shield. That's not correct. Has to be mouth and nose. Okay, if you want to be really safe, covers the eyes too, right? That's going to be hard, but you need the mouth and the nose because that's where all the stuff comes from that spreads this around. Scott texted me a photo. I don't text. I'll try to see if I can figure out how to do that, Scott. Zeno, for visitors, if you want a hard copy of the signatures, it spells out on the form what to do. Great question, Zeno, thank you. Jennifer, visitors have to sign both forms. Yes. Okay. Whoops. Back to technology. All right, so that's my BPPP form. And again, on that form, that the visitor is not feeling sick, does not have any other COVID-like symptoms, and has not been exposed recently to someone with COVID to their knowledge. All right, so pretty simply put that way, okay? Either the new PED all or the PED V accomplishes all of the above. So we have simplified it. You don't need both the PED V and the PED all. So let me pull that up for you really quick here. You can tell I'm way over prepared for this. Here is my PED all form, okay, versus my coronavirus, my PED all. I got 2 versions of it here, of course. So here's my PED all form. You can see everything is on 2 pages now because we've got the PED. We don't have to go through all the other representations that we needed. We've got the BPPP attached to it as well. They don't actually sign the BPPP. That's why we put it all attached to the same form. Okay, so let's see, anything special about that I need to tell you about? Again, exceptions, identification of minors, things like that. Actually, that's an interesting point. You really shouldn't be identifying the minors by name. Okay, Sarah, tell us again, which are the 2 required forms? So I would do the PED all and I would do the PSI. Does each group need to sign a separate PSI or can everyone sign the same one? I would say, yeah, get everybody to sign the same one. Tom, good question. Okay. All right. Flying back here. Okay, so PED all, I showed you the PED all. So that's the new form. You don't need to use the PED V and the PED S and all those things. Just get the PED all signed by everybody, okay? Posted rules of entry must still be posted. A sign in having the key elements above is sufficient. Oh, I'm sorry, there you go. Instead of the PED form, okay, for that particular showing. Now remember, if your house is going to be available for showings and not open house, then you need the PED form, okay? But if you have the open house and you have the sign-in sheet, then you don't need the PED form, okay? So I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. You must provide for adequate social distancing between different buying parties. Questions? Sorry about that, Rick. I misspoke earlier. More updates are coming, obviously, and this is a very fluid environment for us. It's going to keep changing, okay? Check with the city, county, or for more restrictive local showing rules. But our position is that, San Diego is telling everybody, go look at the state's guidance at this time, obviously, because as I said earlier, it kind of trickles down from the state, and then the lower governmental units can create more restrictive rules, but not less restrictive rules. So I showed you the PRE shortened. Let me take us back here just really quick. I showed you the PRE. Here it is. Okay, and the next one's going to say, I showed you the BPPP. There that one is. The PSI form we looked at already. The Pete All form I showed you that's got everybody on it. Stephanie, welcome back. Do the agents need to sign the Pete All forms for all open house clients and with the seller? I don't know that you really need that. I think that you do need to have a copy for your open house. Yeah, you want to have that if you are holding the open house. So open house PSI only and showings PED. Good. Jennifer, thank you. Good way to summarize that. If you have the PSI, you don't necessarily need the PED, but PED is the big picture. And again, it'll be the PED all. So the PED all, Tiffany, your question got repeated for some reason. Replace the PED V and the PED S, and that is correct. So for an open house anonymous, you don't need the PED, only the PSI. If you do the PSI, right? If you do the PSI, then you don't need the PED. Good, thank you. Stephanie, or do we just initial the bottom of the new form? The PV agents used to have to sign too, but there is an identification on the PED all forms. So not sure if agents are required to sign those forms with the clients too. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question specifically. If they've signed the PV, are you saying does everybody have to sign? Or I'm sorry, not the PV, the PED all, just the signatures that are on the PED all. I think we're gonna have to change that anyway. I'm already seeing why. Please clarify again. We only need one for open houses. We only need one. The PSI is sufficient, or the PED can be sufficient. But if you have the PSI, you don't need the other. Okay. Thank you, Tom. And I'm sorry, I did misspeak earlier in my own slide. Sarah, I'm sorry, I was so confused. For an open house, we're still required to have open house. If you have the PSI, you don't need the PED. If you, the PED all, again, thank you for the PED all. The PED all is where we're going. The PED V and all that stuff's going to get faded out, but the PED all is going to be the form in going forward. If you have the PSI signed at the open house, you don't need the PED. Okay. Ruth, many times find there are two buyers, plus they want to bring an adult family member plus themselves. Also, when preparing the PED for inspection, there are the buyers, myself, and the inspector form line. Okay, that's a good point. 4 lines would be great. Yeah, that's something that a lot of people miss. Your physical inspector needs to sign one. You know, I get the calls from the inspector. Your agent didn't ask me to sign one. Okay, Scott, but to make sure PED S does not have to be signed by the seller. PED all, good. When taking a listing, get them to sign the PED all, only the new, and then the RLACAA, and I'm going to show you that. Thank you, Scott. I'm going to show you that in 1 second. We're going to get to that. Let's talk about my listing agreement LOHA form really fast, and then I'm going to take you where Scott's taking us here. So here's our LOHA form, and it's our listing agreement, open house addendum, or agreement, which is, you know, I want to do open houses, so this could be an addendum amendment to an agreement that I already have, right? And so here's my open houses right here. Seller agrees or does not agree. So our default language says the seller is going to let us do it, but obviously you got to have the form signed by them to have their written acceptance of that. Okay, if they don't want you to have it, we're stopping right there. Showing requirements, it's going to go through all of that. Scott, thanks for bringing this up again. LOHA, scope of the broker's duty. You all know I've said it 1,000 times. If you define your duty, you limit your liability. We need to define our duty. This is why we have a listing agreement. This is why we have a buyer representation agreement. I want to limit the amount of what people can come back after me for. Okay. All right. Documentation. They've got the PED all. There it is. They've got the BPBP or a substantially equivalent form if approved by your broker. And that's a really good point. Make sure you check with your broker to see what they want to be having you do. Okay. And then again, the rules of entry need to be posted in a conspicuous place. That's my PRE. So very good. This is going to be my form that authorizes that activity by the seller. Listing agreement, coronavirus addendum or amendment. So again, this is what Scott was referring to a second ago, the RLACAA. And this goes through the whole thing again, again, property showings to allow brokers to do these things. Get these things checked. Ruth, question, Q&A. Stephanie says, PED all. From my understanding, clients only need to sign it once, regardless of how many times they enter into the home. It should be within 24 hours of viewing the property. The old rule said the day of. So the buyer can sign the PED all at the showing. Good. Then it is still good for their inspection. No, I would have them sign it at each showing. Need to sign a new form at each entry. So the rule I just read said 24 hours. They enter 3 times during the course of the round. They need one form for each one. Jane, all good. Zeno, we cannot hear Jane. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. We can't hear her either, Tom. We couldn't hear Jane. Okay. All right. We're going to figure out this audio thing. I don't know. I'll take responsibility for it. Okay. It's not Jane. Jane is awesome. She just really is. Post-acceptance, marketing activities, post-acceptance and other necessarily sales activities. Okay, on and on, seller prohibiting or limiting access to the property. You're going to have that happen where the seller says, I don't want you in the property anymore. You've already done your inspections, right? And I don't want to have to keep cleaning up after you. What else? Anything in there that jumps out at you? Cleaning, temporary withdrawal. Okay, good. So this is an updated form. I like this form, the RLA CAA. That's our listing agreement coronavirus addendum or amendment. So remember, an addendum adds to things, an amendment is something that changes something. So, but for some weird reason, it's CAR, we seem to confuse the two, and I don't know why that is. Here is a copy of my listing agreement open house addendum or amendment. This is the LOHA, the final published version. I've already shown you that one. And let's see, do I have any other forms? Looks like I'm out of forms. Good. Okay, questions? No more comments. Thank you, Jane. How do we access the recording later? Thank you, Michelle. Great question. Jane says you go to the YouTube station, subscribe to the SDAR. I think it's a great place. There's a lot of really good stuff there. A lot of, how to fill out forms, what's common. SDAR wants you to be ahead of the curve. They don't want you to be kind of like barely keeping up. They want you to be ahead of everything. So go to that YouTube. All of my webinars are uploaded there under SDAR. I don't even know how to load them up onto myself, so I just rely that SDR is going to take care of all that. Okay. I love that you are so oh, thank you. That's so kind of you, Michelle. And I talk too fast. That's true too. It's like a fire hose. I know I'm trying to get it all done in 2 minutes, but we're good. We're okay. All right. Thank you, Michelle. That's very kind of you. Jane, YouTube channel under education and training, staying up to date. Awesome. So Jane says the YouTube channel for SDAR under education and training and staying up to date. Okay. And that's what we do. We try to get this stuff to you before anybody else even knows about it. All this stuff just went down a couple days ago. All right. Tom, what if we already had a seller sign the old RLA CAA form? Do we need to have them sign a new one? Again, if it's the addendum, you might want to think about the new one. I'll have to follow up with you on that because we do publish what forms you can continue to use the old one. I like using new stuff. What we were talking about earlier. So I got my LOHA, there's my RLA CAA to reflect the new guidance, including open houses. In the final analysis, folks, the trickle down, as we say. So the state sets the minimum standard. All right. The county can set more, but not less restrictive standards. Your locality can set even more restrictive standards. All right. And so work within the guidance for your own personal preference. But it has to be work within the guidance. So the guidance that they're establishing is going to create our limit. And then you work within the limit. You're not supposed to work outside of that limit. Okay. And I know some of you have to go because we're already at time, but I thank you so much for letting me share your lunch hour. And so I say this, I know Jane's going to smile because, this is how we are. And, at the education department at SDAR, how can we help? What else can we do for you? Is there anything that we can tell you about? And we want to bring you these, up to the minute things as they occur, as fast as they come in. And how can we help? If there's any of the suggestions you might have, education@sdar.com, or I have an email update that I send out every week. I send it out on Friday. So everybody take care for now. Be good. Bye-bye.
Need more help? Contact SDAR Member Services at 858-715-8040 or membership@sdar.com.